Yo, YouTube, what it do, man? It's your boy, King Say. Know what I'm saying? King Say. Back with another reaction video, man. Today we got a basketball reaction. Know what I'm saying? My boy, Jimmy High It all was a lie. Let's get to it. Let's see what they lying about.
In 1985, a rookie Michael Jordan entered the NBA Slam Dunk Contest. At the time, he was only a few months into his NBA career, but MJ already had millions of fans in the palm of his hand. Michael was the future, and everyone knew it.
Must have
And
been
to
nice
pay
being to
homage
wear
to his childhood
chains
idol,
while
Julius
playing
Erving,
basketball.
Michael pulled off a dunk that would inevitably become his trademark.
And them
A dunk
extra
from the
baby
free throw
coochie
line.
cutters
And
on.
on his very first attempt, Michael pulled it off. An incredible, gravity-defying dunk. Fans were amazed. Judges were impressed.
Free throw
Michael
now.
Jordan came in second. And he took that
That's
personally.
crazy.
So 2 years later in 1987, Michael Jordan made his return to the dunk contest, and this time, he put it all on the table. With one of the greatest dunk contest performances in NBA history, MJ
Came back with the ball.
as the
How do you
NBA
go
dunk
ball in
contest
2
champion.
years? I mean, I
But
guess it worked
not
like
before
that.
pulling off arguably the most iconic
Oh, no,
dunk
okay. I thought
in
he had the
basketball
ball.
history.
Tripping.
Another free throw line dunk. But this wasn't like any that came before it. To this day, when most players do free throw line dunks, they really have to reach and strain themselves to get the ball to the hoop. But what MJ did in 87
He clutched
was
that bit
graceful.
like this.
It was effortless. It looked like the man was literally floating. When fans saw this dunk, they no longer thought MJ was some sort of basketball sorcerer who figured out how to levitate in midair. They were certain of it. MJ's hang time was, and still is, like nothing else we've ever seen. The man's ability to just hang in the air was almost too good to be true. And that's because it wasn't true. Not the
do
jumping
you
part,
mean?
but the hanging part. Because contrary to popular belief, it is impossible for an athlete to hang in midair, even for a fraction of a second. The concept of an athlete's hang time is a myth. Back in 2007, a show
Cap,
called Sports
have you
Science
seen
came
that
up
one
with
video?
former NBA
I know y'all know what I'm talking about. That one Kama video where the dude just did the upwards jump. That boy literally started hanging in midair. So that's cap.
player Jordan Farmar to test the
I don't
theory
care what
of
science
hang
say.
time. At the
I've
time,
seen
Jordan
it.
had a vertical leap of 42 inches, and they put this vertical to the test by attaching trackers to his body and pressure-sensitive insoles into his shoes to measure his jumps. And what they found was that no matter where he jumped from, no matter how high he jumped, and no matter how he maneuvered his body in the air, his ascent was always exactly the same amount of time as his descent, with no pause or stall or hang time in between. When you see a player who seems to be hanging in midair, what you're really seeing is actually a bit of an illusion.
While mid-flight body contortions cannot affect their overall flight, when elite players like Michael Jordan begin their descent, their body stretches, which keeps their head moving horizontally for an extra split second. This
What?
creates the optical illusion of
hang
prolonged
time.
hang time.
Now, I cannot begin to tell you how devastated I was when I watched this episode of Sports Science as a kid. This is unbelievable. Next thing you know, someone's gonna tell me Michael Jordan didn't actually stretch out his arm 25 feet to score a last-second bucket to defeat the Monstars. But you can't ignore the facts. So, as great as this dunk was, it wasn't great enough to defy the laws of physics, and the concept of hang time was all just a myth. Just like many other narratives and concepts within the NBA that we've been led to believe for years. Today's video is sponsored by
No, I do not.
hair loss and plan
I'm
is
not. I
personalized.
messaged you, Jimmy, but my boy, we
Keep
don't.
what you go to keep.
I got hair on my head.
Throughout the 75-year history of the NBA, there have been some incredible stories. Stuff that is so incredible that it sounds mythical. And that's because it is. When an old tale or an exaggerated recollection of events takes hold within NBA fandom, it virtually becomes a matter of fact. But
Yeah,
today we are
but
going to
my-
find the truth
Trying to
behind
break
some
his
of these
back.
myths.
Boy, that bitch
Now,
smacked.
growing up years
Dude,
ago,
yeah.
it was just a matter of fact that Larry Bird was the greatest three-point shooter of all time. We all knew it, and we'd all heard the stories from those who watched the man play. I mean, the dude won 3 straight three-point contests, including one where he didn't even take his warm-up off. And to
That's
this
different.
day, some fans will attest that Larry Bird is still one of the greatest three-point shooters of all time, most agreeing that he's top 3: Steph, Ray Allen, and Larry Bird. But this, my friends, is a myth.
Dang.
For his time, Larry Bird was
That's how-
an
that's how I look
excellent
at it.
three-point shooter. But fast forward 35 years, and there have been dozens and dozens of players who have surpassed Bird and his shooting.
like Kyle Korver.
Check this
out.
out. Here's a chart
even
of the best
Nick Young
players who have surpassed.
Nick Young is ahead of him. Richard J. What? It'd be like that.
Bird and his shooting.
He would just take more
Check
threes
this out.
nowadays.
Here's a chart of the best three-point shooters of all time. The further right a player is, the more efficient they were. And the higher up, the more threes that player made each game. All the way at the top is, of course, Stephen Curry on his own planet. And then you have Klay Thompson, Buddy Hield, Damian Lillard, James Harden. This list includes hundreds of players since the three-point line was added to the NBA. And all the way down here is Larry Bird. Now, of course, Bird played in an era where players shot far less threes, and for his time, he was one of the best long-range shooters. But times have changed. Drastically.
Never really thought about
if
it
Bird
like
played
that.
in today's league, he would practice shooting more threes, he'd play in a system that valued the three-pointer more, and he would have simply shot more threes. But Larry Bird doesn't play in today's league. And just based off the facts, there are countless players that are simply better three-point shooters than Bird was. Now, this next myth is one that has ran rampant
that
over
was
the
Curry
last
for a
few
second.
years. And quite
About to
frankly,
say.
I'm sick of it. Every offseason, NBA fans all over social media lose their minds over Instagram and Twitter videos of NBA players who've improved their game, specifically their shooting.
Benjamin
every
Simmons.
summer, clips of NBA
Benjamin
players not
Simmons
missing
does
a
this
shot or
every
going berserk
summer.
in a training session go viral, and immediately fans believe these players have revolutionized their entire game. If I have to watch one more video of Ben Simmons sinking 8 straight three-pointers in an
Facts.
empty gym and then reading comments about how he's got a three-point shot now, I think I'm gonna lose my mind. Don't get me wrong, back when these offseason videos first began to surface a few years ago, some of these guys had me fooled. Andre Drummond's got his free throws down, some player added 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason and their game has completely transformed. Ben Simmons can now shoot the three ball.
No, he can't. He doesn't want to.
You want to know why Ben Simmons is drilling
Shoots
threes like he's Stephen
14%
Curry's
for his
long-lost
career.
brother in these off-season clips? Because he's in an empty gym with zero pressure and piss-poor defense or literally no defense on him at all. 99% of NBA players knock down damn near every shot they take in practice. They are all automatic in open runs against players you've never heard of. And time again, we are shown that these off-season clips do not translate to
mean
the
nothing.
NBA season. I think Lonzo Ball may be the only player in recent history to actually vastly improve his shot over the course of one offseason. We have got to stop taking these offseason clips so seriously. It's just practice. Every NBA player looks like a god when they're getting open shots up. And no, Ben Simmons cannot shoot the three despite the 30-second shooting clinic he posted on his Instagram. Now, the average height of an NBA player is 6'7" tall,
I thought it was
which
like
is
6'8".
really, really tall. In fact, the
ridiculous.
average NBA player is taller than 99.99% of all males in the United States. That means, on average, if you gathered 1,000 random men, odds are only one of them will be as tall as the average NBA player. And knowing this, it kind of blows my mind when people say, you don't need to be tall to play in the NBA. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a myth. Take me, for example. I'm 6'1", and being around basketball my entire life, I've never considered myself to be tall by any stretch of the imagination.
6'1", boy, that's
generally
decent, boy.
speaking,
No
I'm
cap.
still taller than about 93% of men within the United States. Now, out of the 590 players currently active in the NBA, take a wild guess at how many of them are my height or shorter. 40. There are 40 players in the entire
I would say like
NBA
30.
that are 6 feet 1 inches tall or shorter, which means I quickly go from being taller than about 93% of men in the general population to taller than just 2% of players in the NBA. But it gets worse, because the average height for a male in the US is 5'9", which means that an average sized man would literally be the shortest player in the NBA. But he wouldn't be the shortest player in NBA history. Of the 3,500 players to ever play a game in the modern NBA,
Bro, what is
only
this?
11 of them were 5'9" or shorter. That's 0.3%, less than half of 1% of all NBA players since 1977 have been average in stature. Look at how minuscule Nate Robinson looks
Yeah,
against most
soften
NBA
him there.
players. The man is 5'9", This
look like a little
is
boy.
what an average guy would look like in the
Dunking on
NBA.
that.
As if the astronomical
Bro,
chances
no.
of making it to
What
the league
the-
weren't difficult enough. Not being tall makes this
What, man?
immense goal next to impossible.
Not-
So yes, you do need to be tall to play in the NBA. Well, either that or be an absolute anomaly of an athlete. You know, an athlete like Spud Webb or Nate Robinson or Michael Jordan. Except Michael Jordan wasn't only a freak athlete. He was also 6'6", a combination of attributes and physical gifts that eventually made him the greatest basketball player of all time. And decades after Jordan's retirement from the game, his legend continues to grow. The man went 6-0 in the finals throughout his career, but many say
Crazy.
that if he didn't retire the first time in 1993, Michael and the Bulls would have won 8 straight championships. But this is a massive myth. You see, that's
Debatable.
impossible because Jordan did lose in the playoffs to the Orlando Magic. Not in the finals, not in the conference finals, but in the second round of the playoffs. So there's really no need to theorize if the Bulls would have
That
won
was
8
his
straight
first
titles,
comeback, though, wasn't
since we literally saw Michael and the Bulls lose right in the middle of their decade-long run. And I know what some of you are thinking. When Michael returned to the NBA in 1995, he wasn't in basketball shape, and he didn't have enough time to get reacclimated to playing
He
basketball.
dropped
by the
like
time the
50,
playoffs
but
came
now I'm
around.
reading
And
dropped
although
like
there's
50
some truth
the
to
first
this,
week.
I'd be more inclined to agree if MJ didn't average 31, 7, and 5 a game against Orlando in that series. In fact, MJ had better numbers in the playoffs right after his return in 1995 than he had in the following season after being back for a season and a half. People act like he was a shell of himself in his return, when in reality he was about 95% himself in those playoffs. The truth is, after losing Horace Grant in the 94 offseason, the Bulls struggled against teams with prolific big men. And when the Bulls met a prime Shaquille O'Neal and the Magic in the playoffs, this weakness was put on full display in a 6-game series. Even if the Bulls made it past Orlando, they would have had to go through the Knicks, who were just as deep in the front court. And eventually, they would have had to face the Rockets, who were the most complete team in the league that season, with one of the greatest big men of all time. Even if the Bulls had Michael in 94 and the entirety of the 95 season, they just didn't have the roster to outmatch some of the other teams at the time. Not to mention that time and time again, we are shown that winning multiple championships in a row has massive effects on teams. Between injuries, contracts, and player retention, winning championships isn't as simple as just having the talent. The Warriors assembled the
cap,
team
boy,
just
them
as elite for a
injuries,
few
boy.
seasons, and they still couldn't win 3 in a row.
They messed up
Kobe and Shaq
everything.
were the best duo in league history, but after three-peating, they just couldn't replicate the magic they once had. I'd even go as far as saying Michael Jordan retiring in 93 was the best thing he could have done for his legacy. By the time he came back, he was rejuvenated, he was motivated, and the Bulls had made the necessary
he did have a
offseason
little
moves
break.
to make them the overwhelming favorite again.
Who's telling?
So
Who
the next
knows?
time
He
you
could have
hear a
got injured
crazy
in those
story
2
or some
years.
stat that sounds too good to be true,
didn't really
it's
play.
probably because
That's
it isn't
crazy.
true. When a player reaches greatness, he becomes the man, the myth, and the legend. You just gotta know which is which. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time.
WV, man, no cap, man. If y'all like this vid, man, give me a like so we can get this vid in the algorithm. And comment down below what y'all want to see. And subscribe if you're new, man. Road to 100 subs, man. Peace.